Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to hold your child one moment, only to have them ripped away the next, sold like a piece of furniture to a stranger you'd never see again? This wasn't just a fear, it was the brutal reality for countless Black families during slavery in America. In this episode of Black American History in America, we'll uncover the hidden horrors of how the institution of slavery shattered bonds of love, kinship, and hope, and how those wounds echo through generations. But hold on, because the stories we're about to share aren't just facts. They're tales of heartache, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit that refused to be extinguished. It's a sweltering morning in 1830s Virginia on a sprawling tobacco plantation where the air hangs heavy with the scent of earth and despair. A young woman named Eliza clutches her infant son to her chest, her heart pounding as the overseer's whip cracks in the distance. She's heard the whispers, the master is in debt, and rumors swirl that he'll sell off some property to settle it. Eliza's family isn't much. Her husband, Jacob, a strong field hand who dreams of freedom under the stars. Her elderly mother, who sings old African lullabies passed down from a homeland she barely remembers. And now this baby boy, whose tiny fingers grip hers like a promise. But in the world of slavery, promises are fragile as glass. Families like Eliza's weren't seen as sacred units. They were commodities, tools to be traded, punished, or discarded at a white owner's whim. Historians estimate that roughly half of all enslaved people were separated from their spouses or parents, and 1 in 4 of those sold were children, torn from the only love they'd known. As the sun climbs higher, tension builds like a storm on the horizon. Eliza works the fields, her eyes darting to Jacob whenever she can. They've managed to stay together for 3 years, a small miracle in a system designed to break them. But slavery's cruelty wasn't accidental, it was calculated. Plantation owners knew that the threat of separation was a powerful weapon, more effective than any chain. If an enslaved person stepped out of line, maybe running away for a night to visit a loved one on a neighboring farm, or simply working too slowly, the punishment could be swift and devastating. Sell the wife, auction the child, scatter the siblings like seeds in the wind. In the Deep South, where cotton fields stretched endlessly, this happened daily. One account from a former enslaved man recalls watching his mother sold away, while he, just a boy, was left behind, his cries echoing uselessly against the auction block's wooden stage. The suspense of not knowing when the hammer would fall kept everyone in line, their lives hanging by a thread of the master's mercy, which was often none at all. Now let's follow Eliza's story deeper, drawing from the real testimonies that survive in slave narratives and historical records. That fateful afternoon, the master's carriage rolls up, and a trader steps out, his ledger fat with names and prices. Eliza's mother is called first, old but still useful for housework. She's led away in chains, her frail body trembling, whispering a final prayer in a language forbidden on the plantation. Eliza's world cracks, but the trader isn't done. He eyes the baby, declaring him prime stock for a buyer in Louisiana. Jacob lunges forward in protest, only to be beaten down by the overseer. The separation is quick, merciless, the infant pried from Eliza's arms amid screams that haunt the fields. In that moment, the family is fractured, each piece sent to a different corner of the South. Jacob is kept on the plantation, but his spirit dims, knowing his son might grow up never knowing his father's face. This wasn't rare. Records show that in places like Washington, D.C., a hub for the domestic slave trade, enslaved people were herded into pens near the Capitol building itself, shackled in coffles and marched past symbols of freedom before being shipped away. About 2/3 of Black children were separated from their families before slavery's end, according to some estimates, leaving behind a trail of intergenerational trauma. Yet, amid the darkness, glimmers of resistance flicker like hidden flames. Enslaved families fought back in quiet, daring ways. Some mothers, like those in the stories passed down, taught their children secret codes, songs, or marks on trees to find each other if separated. Others risked everything to escape, following the North Star through treacherous swamps and forests, hearts pounding with the fear of recapture. Imagine Jacob, months later, stealing away under cover of night, his calloused feet bleeding as he treks towards Louisiana, guided only by rumors of where his son might be. The suspense builds with every rustle in the bushes. Is it a patroller's dog or just the wind? He dodges slave catchers, forges alliances with free blacks in hidden communities, and clings to the memory of Eliza's voice. Real accounts from the era tell of such journeys. One woman, Harriet Jacobs, hid in a tiny attic for 7 years to stay near her children, watching them from afar while plotting their freedom. In the Upper South, where tobacco waned and cotton boomed, owners sold surplus enslaved people southward in massive numbers, over 1 million in the decades before the Civil War, creating what historians call the Second Middle Passage, a forced migration that rivaled the Atlantic slave trade in its horror. As the years drag on in our tale, Eliza is sold to a new master in Mississippi, where the work is backbreaking and the separations even more frequent. She's forced into a marriage with another enslaved man, but her heart remains with Jacob and her lost child. Slavery didn't just physically divide families, it warped their very structure. Enslaved parents had no legal rights to their children. By law, kids belonged to the owner, who could sell them without notice. This bred a matrifocal pattern where mothers often became the core of survival, as fathers were traded away or forbidden from protecting their kin. But Eliza holds on, sharing stories of her mother's African roots with other women in the quarters, weaving a tapestry of culture that slavery couldn't fully erase. Suspense mounts as whispers of abolition spread, runaway slaves like Frederick Douglass publishing narratives that expose the family-destroying machine of bondage. Douglass himself fled after seeing his family splintered, his words igniting fires of change. The Civil War erupts like thunder, shaking the foundations of this cruel world. Battles rage, and enslaved people seize moments of chaos to flee. Jacob, now graying, joins Union lines as a contraband, his eyes scanning every face for his son. Eliza hears of emancipation through grapevine telegraph, secret networks of information passed mouth to mouth. But freedom brings its own agonizing weight. Will they reunite? After the war, in 1865, the chains fall, but the scars remain. Formerly enslaved people flood newspapers with information wanted ads, desperate pleas like "Seeking my sister, sold from Virginia in 1840, last seen in Georgia." Thousands travel across states, piecing together fragments of lost lives. In our story, miracle strikes. Jacob finds Eliza in a freedman's camp, their embrace of victory hard-won. But their son? Years later, through a chance encounter at a family reunion, those gatherings born from slavery's ashes, they learn he's alive, building a life in the North. Not all stories end so hopefully. Many families never reunited, their lineages scattered forever. This legacy lingers, a shadow over Black America. The separations fostered resilience, birthing traditions like family reunions where descendants honor those torn apart. Yet the trauma echoes in modern disparities, from family structures to systemic inequalities. Slavery didn't just steal bodies, it stole futures, cultures, and connections. As we reflect on Eliza, Jacob, and countless real families, remember, their stories aren't relics, they're the foundation of a fight for justice that continues today. If this moved you, like, subscribe, and share to keep these truths alive. What's your family story? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, stay enlightened.